taking the time to make a fantasy self-evaluation. We'll talk with WFSA Baseball Writer of the Year nominee Nicklaus Gaut about that, plus starting pitchers who might be limited in the final weeks of the season. And a major breaking news scoop by Ruvain about Jacob deGrom. You'll want to listen to that later in his injury report. A jam-packed show tonight. Beat the Shift is next. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me, as always, is Ruvain Guy. What's up, Ruvain?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Did you play on any cornfields lately?
No, but I may have some corn for my next barbecue.
Build it, and they will come.
Yeah, well, they built it, and there are not that many people there, so I don't know what they were saying. I mean, the crowd is kind of small there.
$1,000 plus a ticket there, but I thought it was pretty cool the way that everybody come from the cornfields. I like the pregame with Costner and narrating and everything. That movie, I love that movie. I don't know about you, but that always give me chills, that movie.
Yeah, it's one of the best movies of all time, and James Earl Jones in that movie was amazing. He was a perfect choice for it. He has a perfect voice for it. He's just amazing in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, James Earl Jones has been in a couple of important baseball movies. So is Kevin Costner. So both of them in the same one in just a baseball town in Iowa in the middle of nowhere. Guys playing ball. What could be better? Hey, we got a special guest on the show today. He was nominated this past year for FSWA Baseball Writer of the Year. He writes for Rotographs and Rotoballer, just like us folks over here. Welcome to the show, Nicklaus Gaut. How are you?
Gentlemen, what's going on? Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure for having you. And have you played on a cornfield lately?
I have not played on a cornfield lately. Love the movie, like most normal people. Although I must say, with the game being on, there's been a lot of Twitter jockeying going on lately. There's more people that I realize that do not care for that movie. I don't know why. I get that it's corny, and that's not just a play on words. But it's a kind of corny baseball movie. But like you were saying, like some prime James Earl Jones, some decent Costner, and old timey baseball players in old timey uniforms. I don't know what you could not like.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about that movie is there's no love story. There's no car crash, and I'm taking the words of Kevin Costner. There's no car crash. There's no somebody overcoming something to become somebody. There's no, it's not somebody of coming of age. It's not any of the traditional movies, right? There's no somebody's hurt. There's no somebody goes and finds something. It's not a mystery exactly. It's just when it all boils down to, hey, let's just play catch, and. It boils down to that message of, this game is special and this game connects us all from father to son. And I don't know what those people on Twitter are thinking, but I love that plain and simple plot. You don't really need anything extraordinary to have a feeling,
And if you like that movie, you'd also like the movie 8 Man Out. That's a story about the White Sox that were banned for cheating in the 1919 World Series. Yeah, that was a really good movie, too.
Great movie. Good. Agreed. Yeah.
Well, in our strategy section tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about self-evaluation. Nick likes to talk about this and think about it himself. And, when you get down to this time of year, we're talking 6 weeks, 7 weeks left in the season, it's time to really take a nice self-evaluation on the players on your team, on the standing. Tell me, Nick, how do you conduct this self-evaluation yourself? And, what does it get you in terms of action points to do?
Well, I think it's kind of, two different, you're doing, or at least I am doing two different things. It's like, for one, you're evaluating where you actually are in the standings. Like, what is realistic for, like, where you can make moves and in what categories. Like, it's silly to, you can't just be all sunshine and rainbows looking and say, you know what, I can move my ERA from, I can shave a run off my ERA and move up 10 spots and I'll get points there and points over here. Like, really look each category, be like, okay, realistically, I can I can make up 4 places in stolen bases. I can make some moves in average. I'm probably not going anywhere in ERA and WHIP, etc. Just being honest with yourself there about where, because that kind of directs, remaining strategy for the year. If you can't, if looking back, looking at pitching, if already that you're not going to be able to make some moves in the ratios on ERA and WHIP. And but you can if you once you really understand and be like, okay, best I can do is move up a spot or two there. But if I just forget about those and really direct my resources, choose my starts based off of, all right, I'm not going to stress about the ratios, but I can make some moves in the counting stats. So just, being honest about how much you can move up, and that kind of directs your strategy the rest of the way. And then that also just kind of guides you on the other area on evaluation, which is your players, which it really understanding, not understanding, but at least having a handle on where your guys are at now, but also what they're going to do for the next 6 weeks. And some categories you can, you're at the mercy of, at the mercy of their team and their situation, like on runs and RBI. And stolen bases, more opportunities and team philosophy. But on batting average for hitters, for example, I wanna look at my hitters, and if I'm trying to make a move on average or think I can make up some ground, even if you are someone that's opposed to looking at more advanced stats and you just want to look at batting average or whatever, like still take a look at their batting average and their expected batting average and BABIP too, and just get a realistic view of, all right, this batter may have a 300 average now, but it really looks like there's some, at least a little regression coming. Like, you can't predict everything, but you can at least get a handle on these things and see where your players are at.
Yeah, I get asked quite a bit. People, message me on Twitter or email or whatever, and they say, hey, should I trade this guy for this guy? And, in the beginning of the season, when the standings are not yet done and your roster is going to be in fluid and going to change over the year, maybe there's an answer in a vacuum. At this time of year, there really isn't, because, hey, how about our old friend Chris Archer? Chris Archer, the past couple of years, somebody who strikes out a lot of batters, but give up a lot of runs, bad ERA. You can use a Chris Archer if he's to start, if you need the strikeouts, and if you may need the wins, and if you have some ratios to give up, or if you're nowhere near catching anybody in the standings. If you're in bottom in ERA, but you're really, really tight in the strikeouts, there's a reason to play that type. Whereas if you're in a situation where, oh my goodness, we can't drop ERA and WHIP, you have to make sure you don't put anybody up to start that falls into the risky category, somebody who can potentially blow up your ERA. So if the self-evaluation is very important to see where the large gradients are in each category. And it's not just about gaining, it's also about losing. Which categories are you at most risk, which categories are you at risk the most to lose points? So that's something that you really need to check yourself. Ruvain, anything to add?
Yeah, you guys are talking about if you're actually still in the race, but a lot of people are out of the race already, and your teams are not doing that well. So this is a good time also to self-evaluate what went wrong, what went right, what didn't go right. Was it because of luck, injury? Did you have too many injury-prone players on your team? Were you hit with too many COVID players? Did you lose too many innings and starts due to weather? Was it poor drafting? Was it poor FAB results that you didn't get the player you wanted, or you don't have enough money for it? This is the time you're supposed to be honest with yourself. You have to do it for both good teams and bad teams. So for your bad teams, obviously, if you're not doing well, this is the perfect time to self-evaluate and you say, you know what, this is where I went wrong. This is how I can fix it for the future. What you guys are talking about is perfect also for current teams that are doing well, but you have to look at it from both sides of the coin.
And for everybody, sometimes you get players who come up late or who get hot late in the end of August and September that all of a sudden have a great year the following year. For anybody, if you're in it or not, don't just say, well, I'm out of it, I'm just not going to pay attention. Now's the time to pay attention to who's hot, because very, very often you get an undervalued guy who had a great September and goes off. Maybe it's somebody who finally corrected his swing. Maybe it's somebody who fixed his pitching mechanics. Now's the time to look for somebody who ends the season strong. That's something that can help you in the future. It's not always about this year. It's a process. You may not win this year, but maybe you'll win next year. It's a long-term game at some point. Anything else to add, Nick?
No, that's a really good point by Ruvain. Is even if you are quote unquote out of it right now, like, don't get, because you get too far away from it. Like, say you're out of it right now and you stop paying attention, you don't do this self-evaluation, see where you went wrong, and kind of really your draft isn't fresh in your mind, but your team is fresh in your mind, and kind of where things have went wrong and what went right, and all those things that Ruvain mentioned about what may have went wrong are kind of fresh in your memory. If you just kind of check out now and don't evaluate and say I'll wait until the off season, like, that's November. That's 3 months away, and you're not going to get a good process check whenever you just kind of put things in the bag and don't pay attention, and then go back. And when you get more distance, and it kind of turns more into, you start, rather than finding faults in your process, it's easier to chalk things up to just lots of injuries or bad luck, or my draft was fine, everything was fine, I just happened to get 12th place. Like, this is this is a good time to, but before it's out of sight, out of mind, check in and see where things went wrong. And
you can also try different strategies if you want. If you're out of it and you never really threw middle relievers in before and see how it affects your stats like ERA and WHIP, try it. See, you have nothing to lose anyway, so see how it helps, and maybe you can learn from it and build on it for next year.
That's a wonderful point. And, it's very similar to what we said last week, where you can gain an ERA and WHIP, but not just by performing well, by others' teams fading. So if you hold the course, if you throw in more middle relievers, you might actually be able to gain points even if your ERA still tanks, because others might tank more. So that's a great thing to try and to see what happens to the ratios. Just self-evaluate. If you're out of it, play the game to learn in the last week. It's about a learning process. Everything you do in this game is going to help you. Even if, and Ian Kahn says this, if you win, you still want to get better. If you're not changing anything you're going to do, if you're not learning in the course of what you're doing, you're not going to get better. And certainly, if you don't finish in first, there's always room to improve. So, definitely stay the course. Want to talk as the season winds down in terms of value of players and in terms of maybe a last-minute trade if your league allows it. But starting pitchers, you're going to get into the period where they're going to be shut down, some of them. Maybe they're on a really bad team. Maybe they have an injury and they're going to be shut down. Maybe they're a rookie who might have a supposed innings limit. Remember, especially off of the COVID year last year, we don't know what teams are going to do in terms of innings caps. They might have already predetermined that 160 and that's it. So it's good to talk a little bit about starting pitchers who could be limited, as you might have to find replacements. Luckily, Nick has written a nice article on Rotographs talking about starting pitchers who could be limited, and I want to go through a couple of them to talk about why you think that this person is going to be limited and what you might do as an action point in your league. But before we do that, it's time now for the Injury Guru's Trivia of the Week.
So now we're going to be talking about a lot of pitchers that may be shut down for myriad of reasons, just like Ariel just mentioned. So far, up until this date of the taping of this episode, there have been 23 pitchers who have thrown over 130 innings so far this year. How many pitchers have thrown over 140 innings so far this year, and who are they?
No looking here.
No looking.
I'm going to go with Lance Lynn.
Lance Lynn is not on the list.
No.
140 or more so far.
Nick, you got to guess.
Well, I know one of them, St. Louis's own Adam Wainwright.
Yes, Adam Wainwright is ranked third in innings pitched so far with 148.
I'm going to say Zach Wheeler. I know he's been great.
Zach Wheeler, number one, most innings pitched so far, 156.
Yeah. Your turn.
We also have a member of the Dodgers, Walker Buehler, 147 innings. Two names you wouldn't think that would be on the list: Sandy Alcantara, 143 innings; Merrill Kelly, 142 innings. And Chris Bassett, one
Yeah,
of the pitchers
Bassett.
we're going to be talking about. He pitched today. He pitched wonderfully today. He's